Today we see Kawhi Leonard winning unlikely titles and being considered one of the greatest defenders in history, with his shy manner and funny laugh. But anyone who sees Kawhi Leonard today has no idea that he was once a smiling, easygoing person, until a nighttime murder changed him forever. Kawhi Leonard grew up as the youngest of 5 children, and when he was just 5 years old, his parents split up. Even though his mother got custody, it was his father who played an essential role in his sporting career. Mark Leonard, a former American soccer player, encouraged Kawhi to take up the sport, as he had a large physique, long arms, and huge hands. Kawhi was a talented defender and also played wide receiver, but in his second year of high school, he decided to quit soccer to focus entirely on basketball. At first, his father was angry, as basketball wasn't as safe a bet as soccer. Kawhi wasn't a phenomenon like LeBron James, but his love for basketball was enormous. And that's when his work ethic began to stand out. He would stay for hours after every practice, sometimes shooting and dribbling for up to 4 hours after everyone else had left the court. Then, during Kawhi's third year, one night would change his life forever. While Kawhi was preparing to play in a high school tournament, his father, Mark Leonard, was finishing work at the family car wash, where Kawhi used to work every summer. Leonard Sr. was excited to close up store and go watch his son play. The day seemed normal, until a stranger entered the car wash, approached Kawhi's father and killed him. Just as Kawhi was arriving at the school gym, he received the tragic call: his father had been murdered. Just 24 hours later, Kawhi's school, MLK High School, had another game and, against all expectations, Kawhi took to the court, even though he was deeply shaken. He managed to score 17 points, but as soon as the game was over, he collapsed and cried in his mother's arms. While some people might have used this tragedy as a reason to give up, Kawhi turned his pain into fuel. His demeanor changed drastically after his father's death, becoming more reserved but letting his game speak for him. In his final year of high school, Kawhi led his team masterfully, amassing an average of 23 points, 13 rebounds, 4 assists and 3 blocks per game, and led the team to an impressive 30-3 record. His performance earned him the title of California's Mr. Basketball. However, despite the clear evolution in his game, Kawhi was still not nationally recognized, being ranked as only the 48th best high school player in the country. Colleges that tried to contact Kawhi weren't very impressed either, as he was notoriously secretive and sometimes didn't answer his phone for weeks. Despite receiving an offer from UCLA, Kawhi chose San Diego State, where he was guaranteed a starting spot in his first year. Kawhi averaged 13 points and 10 rebounds, leading the Aztecs to a conference title and the NCAA tournament. He even considered declaring for the NBA draft after his first season, but his coaches advised him to wait, despite his talent as a rebounder and defender. Kawhi Leonard struggled to shoot from long range, hitting only 20% of his three-pointers in his first season. Opponents often left him open, knowing he had trouble shooting, but Kawhi decided to follow the coach's advice and stayed for his second season in college basketball. He improved his averages to 16 points and 10.5 rebounds, with a 30% three-ball rate. Still not great, but progress. San Diego State again won the conference championship and reached the Sweet 16, where they lost to future champion Kemba Walker and the team from Connecticut. Kawhi was named to the All-American second team and declared himself for the 2011 NBA draft. During the NBA Combine, all the scouts were impressed by his physical attributes: 1.90 m tall, 102 kilograms, and an impressive 2.20 m wingspan, as well as gigantic 28 centimeters hands, some of the largest ever measured at the Combine. Although everyone saw his defensive potential, no one believed that Kawhi would become a refined offensive player. He was considered a classic tweener, not big enough to dominate in the paint and still lacking the technique to create plays from outside, with an inconsistent shot. Because of this, Kawhi fell to the 15th pick of the draft, being selected by the Indiana Pacers. However, shortly after being chosen, another surprise came. He was traded to the San Antonio Spurs in exchange for George Hill, one of Coach Greg Popovich's favorite players. Popovich later said that this trade was the hardest decision he ever made because he knew he needed a great defender in the draft, but he wasn't sure if Kawhi's offense would work out. They decided to take a chance and learn to join the Spurs, where he would fit in immediately due to his work ethic and hands-on approach to basketball as a rookie. Kawhi Leonard's freshman season with the San Antonio Spurs in 2011-12 was the beginning of a trajectory that no one could have fully predicted. When Kawhi arrived at the team, he was still seen more as a defensive specialist, that guy with impressive physical attributes but who had limitations on offense. He joined an experienced and well-established team, full of stars like Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, and Manu Ginobili, led by one of the most respected coaches in the league, Greg Popovich. Kawhi soon showed that, in addition to defense, he had something more to offer. Right from the start, he stood out for his ability to mark elite players, whether it was pressing on the perimeter or contesting shots with his absurd wingspan. Popovich was quickly impressed with his work ethic and game intelligence, things that earned Kawhi minutes on the court much faster than most freshmen. Offensively, it was still a work in progress. Kawhi knew he wasn't the most reliable three-point shooter, but he strived to improve and didn't let that limit his impact. Throughout the season, Kawhi had moments of brilliance, especially in transition, using his physical strength and speed to finish off counterattacks. He finished his debut season with solid averages for a freshman: 7.9 points, 5.1 rebounds, and 1.3 steals per game. The most impressive thing wasn't so much the numbers, but the way he seemed to fit in perfectly with the Spurs culture. You could already see that Kawhi was learning quickly from the veterans and absorbing everything like a sponge. At the end of the season, he was named to the NBA's All-Rookie First Team, an achievement that, for many, already indicated that this shy, quiet kid might have a bright future ahead of him. In Kawhi Leonard's freshman season, 2011-12, the San Antonio Spurs performed very well. They finished the regular season with the best record in the NBA, 50 wins and only 16 losses, as this was a shortened season due to the lockout. The Spurs entered the playoffs as one of the big favorites for the title. In the playoffs, the team got off to a flying start, sweeping the Utah Jazz in the first round and also beating the Los Angeles Clippers 4-0 in the Western Conference semifinals. They looked virtually unstoppable, reaching the Western Conference Finals with a run of 10 consecutive playoff wins. In the Western Finals, the Spurs faced the Oklahoma City Thunder, led by Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, and James Harden. San Antonio won the first 2 games of the series, but then saw the Thunder turn around and win 4 games in a row, eliminating the Spurs 4-2. The turnaround shocked many fans, as the Spurs seemed destined to reach the NBA Finals. Despite the elimination, Kawhi Leonard gained valuable experience throughout these playoffs, showing that he could be a key player for the team's future. In Kawhi Leonard's second season, 2012-13, things began to really change for him and the Spurs. At just 21 years old, Kawhi was already starting to be seen as a key part of Greg Popovich's team. His confidence was growing with every game, and he was beginning to be more than just a defender. His role in the offense was increasing. During the regular season, the Spurs were one of the most consistent teams in the NBA, with Kawhi standing out for his versatility. He continued to be a defensive monster, guarding the opposition's main players and, at the same time, showing more confidence on offense, whether cutting to the basket or improving his three-point shooting. That year's playoffs showed that the Spurs were in revenge mode after the previous year's elimination. They beat the Lakers in the first round and went through the Golden State Warriors and Memphis Grizzlies to reach the NBA Finals. And that's where Kawhi faced the biggest test of his young career: LeBron James and the Miami Heat. In the 2013 NBA Finals, Kawhi Leonard had to score against none other than LeBron. The Spurs came within seconds of winning the title in Game 6, but that famous Ray Allen shot forced overtime, and the Heat ended up turning the series around and winning in Game 7. Even with the loss, Kawhi played incredibly well in the finals, showing the world that he was a future star. He finished the series with averages of almost a double-double and received a lot of praise for his defense on LeBron. The feeling was that, despite the painful defeat, the Spurs and Kawhi were ready for something even bigger. In the 2013-14 season, Kawhi Leonard came back more determined than ever, as did the San Antonio Spurs. After the devastating defeat in the finals the previous year, the whole team had one clear goal: revenge. Kawhi, now in his third year, began to show that he wasn't just a complimentary player. He was turning into a star, both on offense and defense. During the regular season, the Spurs played almost perfect basketball, with Popovich rotating his players very well and keeping everyone fresh for the playoffs. Kawhi was key in this process, with his ability to score from any position and contribute offensively. He started hitting his long-range shots better and moving around more without the ball, becoming a key cog in the Spurs' collective attack. In the playoffs, the Spurs looked unstoppable. They thrashed the Mavericks in the first round and dispatched the Blazers and Thunder without too much trouble. And once again, they were in the finals against LeBron James' Miami Heat. Unlike the previous year, this series was dominated by the Spurs from the start. Kawhi, especially, seemed to be on a personal mission. He marked LeBron like few others could, and on offense, he was simply brilliant, reaching his peak in Game 3 with an incredible performance. The Spurs won the series in 5 games, and Kawhi Leonard was crowned Finals MVP at just 22 years old. He finished the series with averages of 17.8 points and 6.4 rebounds, but it was his defense on LeBron and his presence in the decisive moments that drew the most attention. At that moment, it was clear that Kawhi was ready to be one of the NBA's top players, and the Spurs title was the consecration of that growth. Revenge was complete, and Kawhi had already written his name in league history. After winning his first title and being named Finals MVP in 2014, Kawhi Leonard continued to develop with the San Antonio Spurs. The following season, he began to solidify his reputation as one of the NBA's best defenders. In 2015, Kawhi was named Defensive Player of the Year, DPOY, an award he would win again the following year, in 2016. He stood out as a relentless defender, capable of marking the opposition's best players, and was a key part of the Spurs' always efficient defense. On offense, Kawhi also made great strides. He began to create his own shot, becoming a reliable threat both on the perimeter and on infiltrations. His mid-range game has improved, recalling the lethal style of former stars like Kobe Bryant. With his work ethic and technical evolution, Kawhi has become the franchise's top name. In the 2015-16 season, he averaged 21.2 points per game, and the Spurs finished the regular season with a record 67 wins, the second best in the league, but ended up being eliminated by the Oklahoma City Thunder in the Western Conference semifinals. In 2016-17, Kawhi took his game to another level. He established himself as one of the main candidates for the MVP award, with averages of 25.5 points, 5.8 rebounds, and 3.5 assists per game. More than that, he began to be seen as one of the most complete players in the NBA, dominating both on offense and defense. The Spurs reached the Western Conference Finals, but were beaten by the Golden State Warriors in a series marked by Kawhi's injury in Game 1, when he twisted his ankle after a dispute with Zaza Pachulia. That injury changed the course of the series and marked the beginning of a troubled phase in Kawhi's career. The 2017-18 season was the breaking point between Kawhi and the Spurs. He suffered a quadriceps injury that sidelined him for most of the season. The problem wasn't just the injury, but how the team and Kawhi dealt with it. While the Spurs medical team cleared Leonard to play, Kawhi and his private medical team believed he wasn't ready yet. This led to internal tensions. The situation worsened to the point where Kawhi completely distanced himself from the team and all communication with the franchise. By the end of the season, it was clear that the relationship between Kawhi and the Spurs was irreparable. He asked to be traded, and the Spurs complied. In July 2018, Kawhi Leonard was sent to the Toronto Raptors in a trade involving DeMar DeRozan. Kawhi's departure left a bitter mark on San Antonio, ending an era that began so successfully and seemed destined to last for many years. Kawhi Leonard's 2018-19 season with the Toronto Raptors was one of the most legendary in recent NBA history, cementing his place among the game's greats. From the start, it was clear that Kawhi was ready to prove that he was still one of the best players in the world after his tumultuous departure from San Antonio. In Toronto, he had something to show, and the Raptors, who had just traded their star DeMar DeRozan for Leonard, were ready to embrace this new phase. During the regular season, Kawhi was dominant. He averaged 26.6 points, 7.3 rebounds, and 3.3 assists per game, playing in 60 games. Kawhi's workload was managed with caution, mainly due to his previous quadriceps injury, but that didn't stop him from leading the team to a 58-win campaign, finishing second in the Eastern Conference. His impact was immediate, turning the Raptors into serious title contenders. But it was in the playoffs that Kawhi really showed his greatness. In the first round against the Orlando Magic, he had averages of 27.8 points per game, helping the Raptors get through. In the second round, however, came the big test. The Raptors faced the Philadelphia 76ers in one of the tightest series in recent times. The most iconic moment of Kawhi's career so far came in Game 7, when he hit the famous winning shot at the buzzer, making the ball hit the rim 4 times before falling, eliminating the 76ers. Kawhi finished the series with an absurd average of 34.7 points and 9.9 rebounds per game. In the Eastern Conference Finals, the Raptors faced Giannis Antetokounmpo's Milwaukee Bucks, who had the best record in the NBA. After starting the series losing the first 2 games, Kawhi took control. He led the Raptors to 4 consecutive wins, closing out the series in 6 games, with averages of 29.8 points, 9.5 rebounds, and a suffocating defense on Giannis. Toronto advanced to its first NBA Finals. In the NBA Finals, the challenge was the Golden State Warriors, who were seeking a three-peat, with a star-studded team that included Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green. Even facing such a powerful roster, Kawhi was relentless. He had averages of 28.5 points, 9.8 rebounds, and 4.2 assists during the series. His leadership and calmness in crucial moments helped the Raptors win the series in 6 games, clinching the franchise's first title in history. Kawhi Leonard was named the Finals MVP for the second time in his career, becoming the 3rd player in NBA history to win this award with 2 different teams, joining Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and LeBron James. His performance in the playoffs was overwhelming. He accumulated 732 points, the 3rd highest number of points in a single playoff campaign, behind only Michael Jordan and LeBron James. Kawhi Leonard's 2019 season was a journey of redemption, dominance, and consecration, sealing his legacy as one of the greatest players of all time. His work ethic, composure in decisive moments, and ability to deliver on the biggest stages have made this campaign unforgettable. Kawhi Leonard's time with the Los Angeles Clippers, which began in 2019, was surrounded by enormous expectations. When he signed with the team, after leading the Toronto Raptors to the NBA title, the expectation was that Kawhi would take the Clippers to their first championship. To further increase the hype, Paul George was also brought in to form one of the most feared duos in the league. However, Kawhi's journey in Los Angeles has been marked by injuries and disappointments, frustrating both the franchise and the fans. In Kawhi's first season with the Clippers, 2019-20, the team had a solid campaign, finishing with 49 wins and the second-best record in the Western Conference. Kawhi had great numbers, with 27.1 points, 7.1 rebounds, and 4.9 assists per game. In the playoffs, however, what seemed to be a smooth walk ended in disaster. The Clippers reached the conference semifinals against the Denver Nuggets, took a 3-1 lead in the series, but suffered a historic comeback and were eliminated in 7 games. Kawhi had an underwhelming performance in Game 7, with only 14 points, and the dream of the title was postponed. This sequence of injuries and disappointments turned Kawhi Leonard's time with the Clippers into something below expectations. Although he is still one of the most talented and dominant players when healthy, his difficulty in staying on the court has been a huge obstacle. The Clippers, who built a roster around their stars, are still waiting for the success that seemed guaranteed with Kawhi's arrival. As the seasons go by, expectations remain high, but the reality has been frustrating. Kawhi Leonard's time with the Clippers, so far, has been defined more by injuries and what-ifs than by achievements. What was expected to be an era of titles has not yet materialized, and it remains to be seen if Kawhi can physically recover and fulfill the promise of taking the Clippers to the top of the NBA. The story of Kawhi Leonard is a journey marked by overcoming challenges, hard work, and a quiet rise to the elite of basketball. From a talented but underestimated young man in high school and college, Kawhi has transformed into one of the most dominant and versatile figures in the NBA, winning 2 championships and 2 Finals MVP awards. Known for his composure in decisive moments and his defensive excellence, Leonard also faced significant adversities with injuries throughout his career. Even so, his impact on the game and his achievements, especially the historic title with the Toronto Raptors in 2019, solidify his legacy as one of the greatest of his generation.